When Europeans did start to explore this land, they brought tents with them. Planning and preparation, as always, were the key to survival here.
There's no doubt this is a really pretty environment, and there's no reason why you can't camp here despite the cold temperatures. But there is a lot to know. You have to be able to read the conditions. And these conditions, this pretty snow, is pretty awful. It's not good weather to be travelling in. You tend to sweat, you get wet, and when you get wet, you get cold. So my intention now is just to show you how you can put a tent up in these conditions. I've come into the trees, not the ideal campsite here. I'd like to have found somewhere with more firewood close to hand, but there is firewood. But the trees are giving me good shelter from the wind, and that's a help. First job is to tamp the snow down so that it will freeze and give me a solid surface on which to work. The snow covers things so quickly. You need to be very organised so that you don't lose things. So in here I've got things like my shovel, my axe, my mothership, the big jacket I put on if the weather's really cold, those sorts of things. Try to keep your hands dry. When people who are new to the north learn the hard way to keep their hands dry. If your hands get wet in the snow, they will get cold.
In the winter, it's definitely not just a case of chopping down a few trees and making a shelter. You can never take this environment lightly. You have to have wisdom and experience. And with those, it's perfectly possible to live here comfortably long term.
I've come out to look for firewood. Now, if there were two of us, one of us would come out and collect all the firewood for the night, but when I'm on my own, what I like to do is to come out, have a little scout around first, take back enough to get the stove going, to get a brew on, and then come back with the toboggan to fill up with the other things that I found. One of the difficulties in this environment is knowing whether wood is dry and dead, or green, or even sopping wet and just frozen, because they're all brittle. There's a trick. If you take your knife or an axe and you cut a sliver of the wood, put it on your tongue, if it's damp, there's moisture as it thaws on your tongue. If it's dry, it's like a piece of blotting paper, and that is moist. I'm going to have that small pine there for the moment. I think that'll be perfect. Well, that's a great feeling. I've got the tent up, I've got the stove on, the fire's going, and that is a very important thing. When you're tired and you're cold, it really raises your spirits. I've already got some snow melting on there for a brew. The key thing, though, is that with a tent and a wood-burning stove, it doesn't matter if you're wet, because you're going to get dry. That's the key thing. In extreme cold, moisture builds up in your clothing and your sleeping equipment, and it's very difficult to get rid of that. But in this tent, even if it's minus 35 degrees outside, I know from testing it that with the fire going full on, at ground level I get plus 28 degrees. At the ridge, it's much higher, and up there I'll hang all my clothes and I get them dry. And that's the key thing. It means that you can continue going for a long period of time. It's perfectly possible to sleep out, even in very low temperatures if you have a big fire. But eventually, that moisture builds up in your clothing and you have to head indoors. With a tent like this, you've got a sustained period outdoors without any problems.
In some ways, it's easier to spot wildlife here.